Labor hasn't held the seat of Frome since 1970, and it's lost Port Pirie, which is a Labor-leaning end of the seat. Labor has not declared a candidate for this seat yet, which is quite telling. I think you'll find a little bit of, let's say, quiet support from the Labor end of politics to see a Cate Hunter potentially come up and beat the Liberal candidate, Penny Pratt.
We're on the Flow Morning Show and across South Australia now, and time for us to take a look at a discussion on local politics. So we head to the electorate of Frome, and I've got Ricky Lambert, who is our resident expert in state politics. How are you, Ricky?
Oh, good. Thanks, Wayne.
I want to ask you about Frome. It's a brand new electorate, effectively, although the name Frome is already an electorate. But the fact that Port Pirie has been moved out of it, Geoff Brock, the independent who is the sitting member there, has decided to, at the next election, stand in the seat of Stewart. That's left open a very new-looking electorate, which I think we could call the electorate of small towns.
I think you're right, Wayne. We see Geoff Brock moving across to contest Stewart against Dan Van Hos-Pelican, and bits of Stewart have come into the electorate of what is the new Frome. So we're going to have a new MP there, and I've caught up with Cate Hunter, who's the independent candidate for Frome. There may be other independent candidates as well, but she says she's got Geoff Brock's endorsement.
Interestingly, endorsement, because Geoff Brock didn't cover a lot of this electorate before, but there is good towns like Jamestown, Burra, Udunda, Kapunda, Clare, all the way down to the ocean, would you believe, at the Gulf of St Vincent's, at Dublin and so on. So it is a wide-ranging electorate. But with the discussion on Geoff Brock and endorsement, what would she do in a hung parliament situation? Because we do remember Geoff Brock was asked a similar question.
At that time, he actually asked for a delay of 2 weeks and then went around to his councils and spoke to his mayors, his CEOs and his councils and asked them what was their list of priorities for Frome at that time. Should he be in a position to be able to negotiate and bargain for certain things? And I'm likely to do the same. As you know, I'm similar to Geoff in that way. One of the reasons why he endorses me is because I actually have a council background just as he does. And that is my focus. I would likely do the same thing, and I would consult with my 7 councils in the new Frome, and I would ask them what are their priorities, what are their perspectives, and how can we obtain and negotiate for the best outcome for Frome.
Now, I subsequently asked her, and you can hear this on the Flow News 24 podcast, the question, well, could she become the local government minister? Because those with the memory about state politics will remember Geoff Brock then did become the local government minister in a Labor cabinet. Now, she's given sort of a straight bad answer to that one, but she's going to need to sharpen up her answers on some of these as she contests the seat. But could we see Frome continue to be in independent hands?
Well, I think that's an interesting discussion because Cate Hunter, who is a councillor, as you've said, at the Clare and Gilbert Valleys Council. She's moved with her family to Kapunda, which is quite in the central part to be able to travel to the northern part of the electorate and out into the plains to Robertstown and so on. So, I mean, if she was successful, she's well located. She's also listed as 2 of the key issues, the Kapunda Hospital as a real issue, because at the moment with the COVID-19 circumstances, Kapunda Hospital could well lose its emergency services. And this is over the whole issue of air conditioning.
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly what she said in the interview, Wayne, which again is on the podcast. But she said until recently the Kapunda ED, emergency department, was closed, and she still doesn't know what the situation is at Udunda Hospital. She's been trying to get answers on that front. So health is a big issue, and I asked her about the Horrocks Highway as well, Wayne.
The Horrocks, I think. Was it somebody that talked about South Australia not having a roller coaster except the Horrocks Highway?
Yeah, it's like the old Mad Mouse at the Adelaide Showgrounds that used to be there for the Royal Adelaide Show. It is a shocker, and look, state and federal funds have been thrown at the Horrocks Highway, but you might see some big announcements about the Horrocks Highway featuring Stephen Marshall and Corey Wingard, the Transport Minister, as the Liberals try and hang on to this seat. Well,
it's going to be a tough one for them to hang on to because as an independent, we've seen how Geoff Brock, as a councillor in Port Pirie, was able to take that seat at that stage, at the Frome at that point. Now we see a councillor out of Clare, which is in the heart of this electorate, and living in Kapunda, has a real opportunity of winning it. I wonder whether that is to the betterment of South Australia.
Now, I know Frome's got a different shape now, but Labor hasn't held the seat of Frome since 1970, and it's lost Port Pirie, which is a Labor-leaning end of the seat. Labor has not declared a candidate for this seat yet, which is quite telling. I think you'll find a little bit of, let's say, quiet support from the Labor end of politics to see a Cate Hunter potentially come up and beat the Liberal candidate, Penny Pratt?
It's an interesting discussion. We're going to look more across South Australia at these local electorates as we get closer to the March election next year.